We just have quorum now, so everyone who's here, thank you for being here, and please don't leave because otherwise we don't have quorum. So with that said, I will call this meeting of the Advisory Committee on Accessibility and Inclusiveness to order for July 9th. Thank you to everyone for being here today. I'm going to start with the introduction of late items. We have one item that Tammy Hirasawa is going to mention at the end of the meeting about an upcoming Child Development Center and City Partner event up at Westwood Lake. So that'll be added under late items. And with that, I will ask for a motion for the adoption of the agenda as amended. Moved by Sean, seconded by Nicole. All in favor? Okay, and I heard affirmative from Richard, so that carries. Thank you so much. We have one set of minutes from our May 14th meeting. Unless anyone has any amendments to those minutes, I'll ask for a motion. Thank you, Tammy, and seconded by Sean. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. So under the chair's report, I'd just like to welcome our new member of the advisory committee, Andrea Dillingham-Lacourciere. Thank you so much for joining us, Andrea. And we'll just go around the table and introduce ourselves as the committee members. Maybe Tammy, if you want to start.
Hi, Andrea. I'm Tammy Hirasawa. I am a physiotherapist and I work at the Nanaimo Child Development Center. And I'm also the president of the Japanese Canadian Society here in Nanaimo.
I'm Nicole Sugiyama. I am an occupational therapist. I also work at the Child Development Center.
And I'm Hillary. I'm a city councillor and chair of the committee.
I'm Sean Enns. I'm an integrated services manager with Nanaimo Association for Community Living and a bunch of other stuff.
And hello, I'm Andrea. Pronouns are she, her. I am originally from Red Deer. That's where I'm coming from, so Treaty 6 and Treaty 7 territory. I work for the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion as a community relations and partnerships manager. And I am very, very new to this community, so thank you for having me.
And then I'll go to Sarah online.
Welcome. My name's Sarah Pump, and I am the executive director and founder of Poverty Advocacy Nanaimo. Just about forgot the name for a second. So excited to have you join us.
And we also have Richard Harlow online as well. I don't know if...
That's funny.
Hey, Richard.
Sorry, it's just coming in spotty. Hi, my name is Richard Harlow. I go by he, him pronouns. I am vision impaired and intersectional. I work for Work BC, and I've been on the committee since its founding. So I have a good grasp of what's been going on.
Thank you, Richard. So thank you so much for joining the committee, Andrea. We're excited to have you. I also just wanted to mention under the chair's report, a change that's been made to committee meetings regarding question period. We used to have a question period at the end of our committee meetings, and we don't any longer. And so this is, the rationale here is because committees don't have decision-making power, and members of the public are appointed to the committee and may not be familiar with local government legislation and some of the protocols, so that puts the committee members in a really difficult position if we have members of the public asking questions of the committee. Questions can always, because anything that gets decided at the committee level will then go to council. So that's an opportunity there for people to ask questions. And if any members of the public ever have questions, certainly they can ask city council members and city staff, and I'm always available before and after the meetings for questions. So that's the change and the rationale there. So thank you everyone for being on board with that. We have nothing under council communications, so we're going to get into our presentations today. And our first one from Kasha Began, our planner of community development, is about the Woodgrove area plan. So thank you so much for being here, Kasha.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the introduction. So I use the pronoun her, she. I work in the community planning department for the city of Nanaimo, and we look at the long-range planning for the city. And so one of the projects that we're currently working on is called the Woodgrove Area Plan. Does it want to work? Okay, here we go. So the presentation overview today will be, 1, to provide an overview of the purpose of the plan. 2 is the scope of the study area. 3 is the process and outcome. 4 is community engagement. And then to see if the committee has any questions or answers. So this is a very high-level overview. So if you have any questions, please do let me know. So the purpose of the Woodgrove Area Plan is, 1, to refine the vision for the Woodgrove Urban Center. So to provide a bit of context, in 2022, the city adopted in what's called City Plan Nanaimo Reimagined. This is the long-term vision for the city over the next 30 years of where growth may occur. One of the action items from that document is to look at urban centers and provide some more detailed land use planning for it should growth happen there. We're also looking to refine the amenity needs, meaning we want to achieve what's called a complete community, an area where you can live, work, and play, and not necessarily need to own a vehicle, and be able to get around using different modes of transportation, including walking and cycling, and as well as having access to amenities. So we're looking at what amenities, for example, a recreation facility, are there those type of amenities available within this urban center? 3, we're looking at identifying implications of growth on the transportation and infrastructure network. What this means is that currently we have a road network in the area. We have existing sewer, water, and stormwater infrastructure. If growth were to occur there, what are the implications on that existing network? What changes will we need to make in order to ensure that those networks and infrastructure continue to function well? And then lastly is to identify any additional policies, actions, and monitoring to realize the community's vision. So that is overall what will be the bulk of the Woodgrove Area Plan document. So in terms of the study area, I have a map on the screen that shows an aerial of the Woodgrove Urban Center, and there's a red dash outline that shows the boundaries of it. So looking to the north, we're looking at Dover Road, adjacent to Richard Bennett Park. Is that correct, Darcy? May Bennett Park, thank you. So to the south of that is one boundary. Notable locations are Cabela's and the Home Sense. It then travels to the east along Portsmouth Road, and then down along Uplands near the library, down towards Green Thumb, and then south along where the Home Depot and Superstore is, and then to the west is the boundary of the Parkway. So that is the overall scope. It includes about 170 properties that we're looking at, and that area plan provides us a comprehensive look at all of them as any of them were to develop. In terms of the process and the outcome, we're looking at 3 individual phases. Phase 1 is to look at what is the current state of the area as it relates to achieving a complete community. So how much housing is there right now? What amenities are available? What is the state of the infrastructure for getting around? What is the state of the capacity of the sewer and water systems? So that assessment was completed a few months ago. There is a report online that provides a review of those findings. Phase 2, which is the phase that we're currently in, is called looking at growth scenarios. So we looked at 3 separate growth scenarios. 2,500 people, 5,000 people, and 7,500 people, and understanding the implications that that growth may have, as well as what actions we could take with that growth to achieve a complete community. So for example, are there opportunities for new sidewalks, cycling infrastructure? Is there an opportunity for a new recreation and culture facility? Is there a need for a new school? We tested out those options in phase 2. And then in phase 3, we're looking at policies and actions. So how do we actually achieve the overall vision that should make it into the final area plan? And that area plan is intended to help developers as well as the general community understand what the overall vision is and how we plan to get there. You can also see on the screen there's an engagement process, and engagement is occurring at each phase of the project. And overall, engagement includes a survey for the general public that's available online, as well as at static stations at Oliver Woods, the North Vancouver Island Library, as well as this building right here, the Service and Resource Center. We're also meeting with key stakeholders, so this includes residents of the Woodgrove area, commercial property owners, leaseholders of commercial buildings, as well as the Dover Neighborhood Association. And we are also meeting with government stakeholders. So in terms of community engagement, like I mentioned, we're currently in phase 2. We are seeking feedback on these growth scenarios, and the survey is currently available on our Get Involved page, as well as those 3 static stations that I mentioned. And we've extended the survey to be open until July 16th, which is next Wednesday, because we'd like to hear feedback from this community or this committee, as well as your networks. And I do just want to ask this committee as well, we've received a grant from the province. It's called the Complete Communities Grant, in order to help complete this assessment. And there are very technical requirements that we are required to meet and very tight timelines that we're required to meet. And so I will say to your members that, it's a visual survey. We do recognize there may be accessibility concerns in relation to it. And I actually would really appreciate if there's any feedback from yourselves or your network on how we could improve that next time around. Because our job is to ensure that everybody has a voice and the ability to provide feedback, but recognizing that there are some shortcomings with this survey. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to start off by sharing some feedback that I received, and I believe that you've heard from some individuals as well about the survey only being available online, and my understanding is that there is actually also hard copies available. Could you just touch on if people aren't able to access it online, how they can do that?
Yes, thank you. So I will note, we did hear from an individual, and in hindsight, it makes 100% sense. We do have hard copies. We've always created hard copies for any surveys we do in community planning. We unfortunately advertise where those hard copy surveys are online and not in the newspaper. So in hindsight, the newspaper ads that we did have advertising the survey, which include a QR code and a link to the website, should have also mentioned where you can find the hard copy surveys. So yes, so we do have banners set up so that it's visually, you can see that we're advertising the Woodgrove Area Plan, and adjacent to it are the hard copy surveys.
And so that's at the library?
At the Vancouver North Island Library, so near Woodgrove Center, as well as Oliver Woods in their lobby, and we have one here at the Service and Resource Center. And those surveys can be dropped off at any city facility and can be inter-office mailed to our department. You don't have to drop them off here. Thanks.
Thank you. That's really helpful, and yeah, good feedback to receive, and a reminder to all of us that, accessibility also means making sure that people who don't have internet access can always get the information that they need. So I know that'll inform our communications going forward, making sure that we have at least a phone number available, which I think would be helpful. Even if we can't advertise the locations, then at least they have a contact number that's easy to find. So yeah, thank you for that. Is there any other feedback from committee members that people wanted to share? Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands, but I know that this survey is like going through it myself, it was quite dense, like information-wise, and if you hadn't done the earlier survey, it might be hard to come in at this point, but I really appreciate the level of input and engagement that we're seeking on this, and those who are interested, I think, will really find it helpful. And I do see Richard, if you wanted to weigh in, Richard, with a question or comment.
I'm sorry, I'm dealing with some spotty related signal. I was just wanting to confirm, is it just on the accessibility of the survey that we're wanting to weigh in on, or any elements of the current plan?
Great question, Richard. It'd be on both. So if you have any feedback in relation to the actions we're proposing to take in relation to the 3 growth scenarios as they relate to accessibility or anything else, we'd love to hear your feedback on it. In terms of the actual survey, especially for you, Richard, we didn't include alt text to describe the maps. Pardon?
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
notice that when I tried to take the survey.
Yeah.
One thing that I have definitely been noticing is that there's been an increase in accessible crosswalk.
So there has been? Oh, I think we lost you.
Like maybe like generally we're moving towards including
at a lot of the major stops, so like at Cabela's, or the areas along the major bus routes that go to Woodgrove. It kind of forces people to have to walk across like 4 lanes of traffic at some times if they're wanting to get across the road.
Yeah, so I can speak to that, Richard. Thank you for that. We are working with the Ministry of Transportation and Transit because we are aware through phase 1 and, you know, having grown up in Nanaimo and using that area quite often, there are accessibility concerns in terms of being able to cross the Island Highway. So we are working with the ministry, and one of the action items from this project will be to try to improve the cross-section. I don't know if you probably didn't notice, but one of the maps does show a new intersection that would complete a new ring road that would be proposed where the Costco and the Woodgrove Mall site would be. So that would reduce the length of distance between intersections to be able to cross. We're also proposing to move the transit exchange to be more central. So there is more public infrastructure to be able to access it. But if there's any other suggestions, please do let us know.
I think also looking at lighting along those bus routes will also help with visibility during like the winter and shoulder seasons, because there are some areas along the residential areas of that neighborhood that I personally noticed that can be incredibly dark, and I've had buses drive past me in the evening time. So that might be something that the city can look into as well.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. I'm going to go to Sean now.
Just a comment. So I think often social support services aren't things that communities ask for in different neighborhoods, because often there's a connotation that it brings other things with it. But the north, particularly that part of Nanaimo, is very retail dense and not very many social support services. So I hope as part of this plan, the city can consider what steps it might take to encourage development types or encourage developers to create spaces that invite social support organizations in, so that you can increase the types of inclusion and density in those areas. I don't know what that looks like, but if that's something that can be built in, that's a city priority to increase the number of those services that are available in the north end, I think that's really important in any neighborhood makeup in town, because everything's kind of here now. And so we want to spread things out so we can have a more complete city. Thank you.
So do you mind just providing some examples? What do you mean by social support services?
Well, I would say, so addictions outreach, mental health outreach, disability outreach. Most of the organizations that provide those services are in the south part of Nanaimo, and I would say like it's pretty south, so we don't even get into central. So from like Brooks Landing South is where you're going to find anything that's related to addictions, mental health support, community support, social service support. The further north you get, the fewer of those there are. So when we
Right.
look at marginalized populations, the supports and services that they might need access to, they should be everywhere in our city, not located downtown. I think that's often been a thing, even when you get into sort of development permits and stuff like that, and there's community pushback
Right.
around types of development in different neighborhoods. And they'll say, well, everything's already downtown, can't you just put it there? So I think there's an opportunity for the city to push back a little bit on that sort of stuff and say, well, we're a complete city. There's many people who live in the margins. There's many people who need access to supports, and they're actually everywhere in Nanaimo. They're not all living downtown. So we need to encourage that sort of development and support service everywhere, so that people who need access to child support services can, you know, like all of that, you have to come downtown or in this sort of anything in this south part of town to access. So I just think encouraging that stuff so that's not quite so, I understand the value of having the retail density, but I think making sure that there's room for developers to go in, build stuff that's cost sensible so that the small organizations that provide those services can find ways to get in, or that there's room within the city to encourage organizations to spread out into those areas and work with them on tax incentives or other things so that they can increase their service delivery into those parts of town.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. So in phase one, we did find that the majority of the uses are dominated by retail, and that's actually a result of the land use that's currently in place for that area. So we don't require mixed use at the moment. We do support residential, but really commercial is the primary use. And so with city plan, we heard from the community for the desire for a mixed use development, or at least standalone residential. So that's one change that will be coming with the Woodgrove area plan. But we also heard that through our assessment, the dominance of large retail spaces and the amount of square footage that they take in relation to smaller retail spaces. So we are going to be looking at actions that we could potentially take to ensure that when redevelopment does happen eventually, that there's a mix of different retail sizes to accommodate social services like you mentioned, and ensuring that those uses are permitted. I believe right now they are, we can confirm, but the intent is for this area to have the most permissive amount of uses because we want that complete community. And the last thing I was going to say is we are also working with Island Health, so they are one of our partners. They're on our external steering committee. And so we will be working with them to ensure that there are health services that we can attract to this area.
Awesome.
Through some form of incentive.
I'm going to go to Sarah as a first-time speaker and then back to Richard.
Thank you. I just wanted to build on what Sean said very capably, which was, I agree that we do need to be seeing a sensitivity of spreading social supports throughout the city. And I think that this is an opportunity for us with looking at this area with a fresh lens. And when you ask for suggestions of who should be involved, I think it would be helpful to be talking to the organizations that are already working in that area. Bolinas Housing, for example, is running a new, it's partial subsidized and partial low end of market building that was just opened on Hammond Bay about 1.5 years ago now. That's just on the fringes of the area that you've designated on the map. It's just down the street from the North Library. So, I mean, they're already in the area. They're learning things as they go. This is, you know, a brand new building. I think they'd have a lot to bring to the table. And then Loaves and Fishes, for example, runs a food bank, a free food market every Sunday at Harvest Church right beside Costco. So they see a ton of people from that area. And then Gord Fuller from the 710 Club, he ran a winter shelter in bad weather at the Harvest Church last winter. So, you know, there are services already being put in that area. I don't think that are being recognized or necessarily extremely well communicated about. And I just, again, want to agree that there is already a need there. And I think especially as if we move into more mixed use and as there's more building there, you know, personally, I have a lot of clients who are living in those beautiful, bright, expensive apartment buildings and are in poverty, but it's the only place they can live. So, yeah, I think it would be helpful to talk to people who are already doing those things. Oh, also supportive housing. We've got a bunch of new supportive housing going in the South End, way in the South End, out by Rona, and then Victoria Road. But you know, is that something that we should also be considering for the North End?
Thank you. Thank you for that input. Richard, you lowered your hand. Did you still want to weigh in? Or maybe I'll go to Nicole in the meantime.
So that area doesn't currently involve a school, is that correct? Am I understanding? Okay,
That's correct, yeah.
So, and where in the complete community, which part of it would include like childcare and playgroups and such like that? Because
So
like
for
childcare services.
yeah, so for an area plan, it would just be ensuring that that use is permitted.
Okay.
I mean, it currently is, but we did test if we added an additional daycare, would the distance for walking and cycling reduce? And we did notice it, so there'll be policy around ensuring that those services are spread out throughout the entire urban center so they're not congregated to one area to support walking and cycling.
Yeah, there's a few up there, but I think that there's not as many parks and things nearby to those. So like there's a childcare setting in the parking lot of the mall, but that limits green space. And it's not that that's not a suitable daycare, but to build more, you can't just put them in a retail space. You need to build more near, they're usually near schools. That's why I was asking if there was a school, but.
Yeah, so we did actually look at, in phase 1, there are no parks and open spaces that within the study area. And so in phase 2, we actually propose, I think, upwards of 6 new parks and open spaces, as well as linear parks along multi-use paths to really achieve the goals of city plan. And so when redevelopment happens, should a site redevelop, we chose ones, I think, over 50,000 square feet would be more viable to have some kind of park amenity and open space. And we'll be working with the Parks and Recreation Department to determine what those kind of parks are. Are they small pocket parks? Are they larger ones? Are any of them attached to the recreation facility? We've been working with the school district to determine maybe it's a elementary school that is connected to the recreation facility like we see in other urban centers. And then there's a shared park that's open to both the school and the public. We're looking at alternative approaches that we haven't seen in Nanaimo yet because we are moving more to an urban center. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands at the moment. So I think that brings us to a close on this presentation. So thank you so much, Kasia, and thank you to the committee for your feedback. And again, that survey is open until July 16th, online and
Correct.
in person at the North End Library Branch or Oliver Woods or City Hall.
Correct.
Or call me and I'll get it to you.
Just call us. Thank you.
Okay. Wonderful. So our next presentation is on accessibility in transit, and this is going to be introduced by Jamie Rose, our Manager of Transportation. We also have Darren Marshall, the Senior Manager of Transportation Services for the Regional District of Nanaimo.
Thank you very much. So Darren and I are going to be doing a complimentary presentation today to talk about accessibility in transit. This came up as a discussion or there were some questions raised at the last meeting, and so we felt this was a good opportunity to come in and provide a little bit of an update on sort of how we balance things and who's responsible for what and how we manage all of the elements of it. So generally speaking, the city is responsible for any of the infrastructure to get people to and from bus stops or bus exchange points. And so this includes bike lanes, sidewalks, crosswalks, traffic signals, things like that. And so we generally rely on our manual of engineering standards and specifications to get the details of how we do that. And so that identifies wayfinding or accessibility features like score lines and sidewalks or the yellow tactile strips. And so, and then in addition to that, we've had some conversations that have included an awareness that we need to provide some educational material on how to use some of the infrastructure that we've created, such as the floating bus stop that is depicted in the top right corner there. That's one on Front Street. And so we've got a short video kind of talking through what we expect each user to do, whether it's a cyclist, a pedestrian, a driver, et cetera. So as I say, we found our decisions and our plans and our designs on the manual, which was adopted in 2019, 2020. But at the same time, we also look at that manual periodically for opportunities to improve things. And so not too long after the adoption of that, those design standards, some questions were raised. And so we actually worked with the members of this committee at that time to go through and actually do some field visits to look at some of our existing bus stops and transit facilities, but then also look at some of the new ones and sort of see where there's opportunities to do better. What are some of the real pressure points? The image up here is actually of the, or one of them is of the Country Club Exchange behind Country Club Mall. And it highlights how narrow the sidewalk is and how little room there actually is to board and disembark from the buses if you're in a wheelchair or have another mobility aid. Or even if you just want to pass on the sidewalk. So anybody congregating at a stop waiting to get on the bus, there's not a whole lot of room to mingle there. And so with this discussion, we came back and chatted with this committee at the time and talked about whether or not we're on the right track and should we be prioritizing, or where should we be prioritizing our improvements. And so that led into a program to improve quite a few stops around the city, to provide some of the tactile warning features, to also improve some of the transitions to make the stops more accessible. So it's not just a pin on the side of the road. There's actually a raised element, so it makes it easier to board and disembark from the bus. So these are some images that have come out of a pilot project that the city participated in at a provincial level. This was with BC Transit, TransLink, and a number of other communities across the province to seek ways to continue to improve providing fully accessible stops with integration into multimodal features such as the bike lanes that are the images of here. And so I think this is something that is just a key point of all of the work we do. We're constantly looking at opportunities to do better. And so, you know, if we hear feedback from this committee or even just from other members of the public, just making us aware that there are shortcomings. Richard mentioned earlier that there's some stops in the north end that may not be as well lit as they could be. Those are things that we can look into and determine whether or not they're a localized issue or whether there's something that we need to look at more systemically. And so, as I said, we are continually sort of keeping tabs on how the system's operating and what options we have to potentially do better and provide a higher level of service. And I think that's where I hand the baton off, unless there's any questions.
I have one question about the crossing signal beg button, and
I think there's a better name, but okay.
yeah, what is the proper name?
Just a pedestrian button.
A pedestrian button, okay.
Mm-hmm.
In one of the images, it looks like it might be like up on a curb next to like a lowered area, and I know we've had a few issues where people like can't reach the button because it's up on a curb and a little bit too high, and the ones that you wave at, sometimes they don't trigger.
Yeah.
So just keeping in mind for future projects.
Yeah, so that's something that we is a bit of a learning experience. We have converted many of our pedestrian push buttons to the motion activated ones. They have a range of about 30 centimeters to 45 centimeters. But there's still situations where some of them are not as close as they need to be. So some locations we've been able to add extension arms to make up that difference. Other ones we're still trying to find some better solutions.
And Sean?
Yeah, and this might come up because I see there's more of this presentation to come, but I think because the thing the city can't control is how many buses there are, how far the buses go, and where the buses stop. So you can only design the experience that people have when people get to a bus stop. I think just because of the nature of transit in Nanaimo, that people often have to wait a long time for a bus in certain parts of town, that if the weather's inclement, it can be a really uncomfortable experience, that if it snows and they have to climb over snow. So I think the city's role can be really to sort of expect that those are gaps in service, and how do you make that experience as comfortable as possible for people often with disabilities, seniors, people who experience barriers, who are going to have to wait for maybe half an hour for a bus. How do you ensure that they're not standing in the rain? How do you ensure that there's enough room for them? How do you ensure that they don't have to climb over snow when they get there? So I think those sorts of things, which are inclement and unpredictable, but also predictable to a sense, are the things that the city can control and would like to see maybe more attention on, because that's the access to and from the spots is important, but really the thing that I hear most from people is their comfort while they're waiting for a bus, and that they're in the rain, there's not enough places to sit, the snow's in the way of the thing because it gets pushed up when the plows come, all things that are predictable patterns of doing that stuff. But I think important things that the city can do to ensure that people want to take the bus and feel comfortable waiting when they do have to wait for a period of time. Thank you.
If I can maybe elaborate on that, excellent point, because that experience of sitting waiting in a miserable November night is unpleasant for all. And so we've actually just updated our contracts with both our shelter provider and our bench provider. And so we're in the midst of coming up with our deployment plan for new and more of those facilities. So those are coming forward, and then we work with BC Transit to fill in the gaps in the local routes. And then lastly, with respect to the snow and ice control, it's a challenging process every winter, and we do the best we can with the tools, but yeah, it's unfortunate. So.
And I see Richard has a question as well.
This is in combination of the two presentations. One thing that I noticed that along a lot of the routes is that there may be curbs from like the intersection that goes to the bus stop, but in a lot of sections of the north end, there are areas where there is no sidewalk on the side of the road where the bus is actually going. So like ideally there should be a paved sidewalk along a lot of the bus routes themselves. If someone gets off at wrong stop or something, that they're still able to accessibly be able to continue along their journey. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I got the gist of that, there are gaps in the pedestrian network throughout the city. I think your area of focus is the north end, and it's something that we're continuing to work on. Construction costs are skyrocketing, and so we're really focusing that sort of investment in areas which are the highest risk for all users, which is typically the intersection. So when we have an opportunity, we definitely look at ways to try and improve that corridor walking experience. But it is very challenging with limited resources, frankly. So.
Okay, thank you. I'll let Mr. Marshall take over.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm Darren Marshall with the Regional District of Nanaimo, the Senior Manager for Transportation Services that delivers conventional, so the big CNG buses on fixed route, and the custom, which is also referred to as Handy Dart, on the door-to-door service. Ensuring equitable access to transit service is a core value of the Regional District of Nanaimo, especially for passengers with mobility aids. Weekly updates like customer service concerns, CSCs, update, track customer interactions, suggestions, including accessible related concerns. Each are addressed on their own merit and incident. This presentation outlines how transit service expansion and modernization efforts are tied to improve accessibility and customer experience. Oh, now I've done it. Does anyone? Oh. Perfect, thank you. The core materials refers to BC Transit's operators manual is issued to all new employees and includes detailed procedures on wheelchairs and scooters boarding, alighting, and securement. For those unfamiliar with our relationship with BC Transit, they are our partner and support us in various areas such as strategic planning, infrastructure projects, training materials, operational performance reviews, and many more. Today, we have two BC Transit representatives with us, so they can answer any questions that might be related more towards BC Transit. So we can touch on that after the presentation. Boarding procedures, including kneeling buses, ramp deployment, and for heavy-duty CNGs and light-duty Bluebird models of buses. Cross-training sign-offs. Employees complete cross-training acknowledgements, specific training sign-offs, and perform and to ensure readiness across conventional and custom service areas. So what that means is their operators are able to work in both areas, and they're trained in the efficient use of the equipment. Incident reporting. Training also includes how to complete incident reports as outlined in the BC Transit Operators Manual and supporting procedures. Management's integration in training and policy documents are regularly used in the context to verify use and operator preparedness. Weekly customer service concerns updates categorize customer feedback into themes like safety, planning, and accessibility, helping identify training gaps. Organizational commitment. The RDN highlights corporate-wide training initiatives including de-escalation and respectful workplace training, which supports accessible service delivery. Leadership engagement. The customer service concerns are routinely discussed and reviewed to reflect ongoing leadership attention and service quality and accessibility. Thank you. I'm available for any questions.
Sean.
Yeah, so I mean, service delivery is a moving target, and I mean, I can, in my work working with adults with developmental disabilities, I can think of several just in the last year that have been in some sort of incident on the bus, whether they've been attacked or assaulted. And bus drivers respond very well to that, and always the police are called, and you can't stop people from engaging in things on the bus. But I think what I would always hear from everybody is rather than improving the existing systems, there needs to be just more buses. And I mean, there's so many ways to improve a transit system. But the service level improvements and the service delivery options and all that stuff is great if you can actually get to a bus. And there's so many people in this community that just can't. And so this stuff is excellent, but I think if any of it's a budget line item, I think people would be happier with an imperfect transit system that maybe had some and I think too on like moving, supporting people with mobility devices, most people in Nanaimo have figured that out. So if they need that, they often have someone with a van or a vehicle, or it comes with their, the service or support that they have access to. So just because it's been a gap and because of a number of things, people have that sort of sorted out. So we'd all, I can't speak for everyone else, but I know that I and many of the people that I support would just rather be able to catch a bus than to have a bus that does things better. Thanks.
You're talking more routes and more.
More routes, more stops. So I know a person, for instance, that lives on Jingle Pot Road, and the bus doesn't stop on Jingle Pot Road. It just doesn't. It's a massive road, and so they can't be employed because they can't get anywhere where jobs are without taking a taxi. So that's a huge gap, and I think the improvements are great, but it doesn't support someone that can't get out of where they live.
Thank you, Sean. Richard?
I want to premise that I have several questions and some compliments actually. First, found that the announcements that are being periodically made along the bus routes, reminding passengers about important information like the courtesy seats and such, have been very valuable to make more people aware of those sort of accommodations that the bus has, and to make more people aware. But I do find that it's not as descriptive. Say, for instance, talking about people with mobility aids or vision impairment, things like that, seniors would be beneficial. Or having actual bus drivers try to speak up and advocate to make, say, a group of maybe young high school students aware of someone who may need an accessible seat. I find that I'm usually having to advocate for myself in a lot of those situations. And I sometimes struggle with that. Secondly, I have found that some of the instruction that is being taught to bus drivers in regards to signaling drivers to stop is inherently ableist. That being having to wave a driver down. I think that's currently actually listed in the driver in the guide for passengers that has the bus routes and stuff, noting that it is proper kind of behavior to wave a driver down if you need that bus, or waving it past if you do not need that bus. Since
Oh, we lost you at since, Richard. Okay.
for it to then pause and tell me what bus it is. Yeah, so
Sorry, I'll just ask you to pause there for a moment. Did you catch that,
I
Darren?
didn't quite
Okay.
catch that.
So,
oh,
Richard,
sorry.
we had the part about waving down the drivers and how that's an imperfect
Yes.
system.
Yeah. And so it's caused drivers to essentially drive right past me since I can't give eye contact, and drivers are not fully informed on like what mobility aids can look like. So I've had to teach drivers what a white cane is.
Okay. Oh, and sorry, and then you've had to teach drivers what a white cane is, and then you dropped out again. So can you make your second point now?
Yeah, there's a delay between when the door opens and when the announcement occurs. And sometimes when drivers are in a rush, they think that me pausing to listen to the bus number means that I don't actually need to get onto the bus. And so that's had me have to chase buses down.
Okay, that's an interesting point as well. Mr. Marshall?
Thank you for the feedback. I did note my counterpart from BC Transit taking some notes vigorously.
Awesome.
So we appreciate the feedback, and to that, we do annual training for the operators each year. So this is feedback that we could incorporate into our training sessions, but we probably would need a bit more consultation. So if at any time you want to reach out and contact me, we can discuss this further. That would be really.
I certainly have, and I've had some difficulties with that. And the Canadian National Institute of the Blind in BC has also tried to reach out several times in the past with no response, which has been rather problematic. I've also submitted an issue to a previous employee who was
We lost you again, Richard, but I'm hearing that we'll definitely close the loop on that and making sure that that feedback gets through. So I can put you in touch directly with Mr. Harlow, Mr. Marshall. and
That'd be
then-
great.
Okay. Okay. Just Richard, you're coming through really spotty right now, so I'm going to go to Sean, and then we
Sorry.
can come back.
I'm gonna, no pun intended, throw Andrea under the bus here, who works for the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion. And so I think sometimes we do ask people with lived experience to tell us how to train people. I'm familiar with the organization because we use it at work. For organizations who want to learn how to be more inclusive, that is their entire role, is to support
okay.
organizations. So there's a membership fee. I'm sure she would be happy to tell you more about that and how you could access some of those learnings to improve the accessibility of your service. Thanks.
That'd be great. I'll leave my card behind. Okay.
CNIB would definitely be interested.
Okay, so hearing CNIB would also be interested, as well as Andrea's organization. Okay. Awesome.
Perfect.
So just to add to that, part of the challenges in working in municipal government is that you have to ensure that there is an element of psychological safety in front-facing, public-facing spaces. And so the concern of perhaps, Richard, the courtesies that could be extended by the driver, their main concern is the safety of all the passengers in that space. And so making the announcements, while yes, they could be reinforced by the driver, they're really depending on the company that are in that space to reinforce that, because it is a community culture thing, and you need to build those spaces for supporters, and this is definitely a space for that. And I would hesitate to ask more of them because there is so much going on, especially when you're dealing with people that are living in precarious places or they're dealing with addiction issues. There's so much social dynamics at play that I would just, rather than look to a driver to do one more thing, I would encourage fostering that culture around you.
And are you referring specifically to like the courtesy seats mainly?
Yeah, so when Richard was really sort of addressing that for people that have disabilities or that are elderly or have mobility issues, yeah. Okay. It's another ask, and it's really challenging. I would hate to stress out somebody that's already in that space more with tasking them that.
Okay, Richard, I see your hand up again.
Yeah, I do understand that, but I feel like if someone is trying to find the seat and they are literally falling over because they are unable to hold themselves up and the bus is already taking off because they're busy, that's putting at risk the people on board. I've caught a senior before because the bus had suddenly moved forward without noticing that they didn't even make it past a few feet. And further to this, I feel like some anti-bias training needs to be conducted. I was not so long ago informed by an Indigenous client of mine that the reason why they were late for the appointment was because they were wearing a hood in the rain, and that was intimidating to drivers. In our climate where we get lots of rain, I don't necessarily think that wearing a hood should cause a driver to pass them by when they're just trying to get to their point B, especially when there aren't any shelters at that location.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Okay, I don't see any other hands from committee members and really appreciate all the feedback that's been shared thus far. So thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you, Richard, specifically for prompting this to be an agenda item today. Our last presentation today is about the Downtown Transit Exchange, and this is going to be introduced by Phil Stewart, our Manager of Engineering Projects.
Hi, yes, I'm Phil Stewart, Manager of Engineering Projects, and I'm here to talk about the Downtown Transit Exchange. We also have, obviously, Mr. Marshall that was just up here is involved in the project as well, and our BC Transit partners. So this project is a partnership between the RDN, BC Transit, and the city. We've been working together on this for several years. One of the starting points for the project was several years ago, the Regional District of Nanaimo, in partnership with the city and BC Transit, developed a transit redevelopment strategy, which looked into the future of what transit could be as the city grows. And the principles inside that document kind of informed some of the decisions around the Downtown Transit Exchange. And so we're building off this kind of future-looking document to try and understand what the downtown needs. Early in the project, this was several years ago, there was some public consultation around the project to understand from the public's perspective what's important in a Downtown Transit Exchange and what it could be. So we had 960 surveys completed and almost 200 people at the public event to give feedback. And we had kind of a top four from all of that feedback. And the first one was lighting and visibility, so ensuring that the transit exchange is well lit and can be seen and people can be seen there. Second was clearly marked pedestrian crossings, so ensuring that people can get to and from the exchange. And the third one was ensuring that there's some street greenery around the exchange to make sure it doesn't feel like a, parking lot and just a sea of asphalt. And then the fourth time was bus arrival information. And I'm not sure where BC Transit and the RDN are at, kind of, because that's more of a global system. So I'm not sure if that's something we'll make it into the project, but it's something that's probably more of a global transit thing. And this image is an early rendering of what the exchange will look like once constructed. This was done before we did the Terminal Avenue upgrades project, so a lot of that project is rendered and not what we actually see out there right now. But it shows an exchange on Terminal Avenue with 2 stops right on Terminal Avenue, and that will facilitate the rapid bus that will go up and down Terminal Avenue, and then several stops off street on the exchange property. This image doesn't show, but the design has evolved a little bit to include a couple of stops on Victoria Crescent and a pedestrian connection between Victoria Crescent and the transit exchange. And then, of course, there's the pedestrian signal that crosses Terminal Avenue, which connects the north rapid bus stop to the transit exchange. This image shows kind of what a conceptual rendering would look like when you're looking north with the transit exchange. And then another image that shows what it would look like looking south from the perspective of where the existing pedestrian crossing is. And then, so as we're kind of evolving with the design, we're going from concept to detailed design. And one of the documents, because it is an off-street exchange and it is a RDN and BC Transit facility, we'll be using BC Transit on-street infrastructure design guide. And there's a chapter around planning principles and a section around safety and accessibility that will be implemented on this one. We have the same team involved that Mr. Rose was talking about that has been working on bus stops and that type of thing. So any of the lessons learned that we pull from those projects will be talked about and integrated into this. One of the other requirements from BC Transit's point of view is a safe design consideration, and that's security achieved through functional environmental design. And it's just an assessment and certification that's done to look at the surrounding space. Does it feel safe? Is it somewhere you want to be, or is it a dark corner and not really an inviting space? So this gets assessed and it gets a score, and it provides some opportunities for improvement throughout the design. So that's one of the pieces.
How much does that overlap with like crime prevention through environmental design principles?
They're essentially the same thing. This one just has a certification that goes with it. So it's an actual process. It's scored, it's certified, and where crime prevention through environmental design is more of like a broad-based kind of concept.
Thank you.
And then finally, what our timeline looks like. So we're in the design process right now in 2025. We should be finished the design by the end of the year if things go well. And we are looking to start construction early next year and be completed by the end of the year or early 2027. And that is, a presentation. And if there's any questions around it, be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Sean?
I love all the stuff around the transit exchange and what that's going to look like. My main thing is like just the highway is terrifying on a good day, and the crosswalk there is fine, but cars are fast, and when the visibility is low, if there's a means to get from the mall side of the road to the other side of the road without dealing with traffic at all, like over the road, that would probably be a huge safety thing. I think about people with mobility aids. I think about people like just however people wearing dark clothes or whatever, not being mindful of the crossing, not waiting to push the light, any number of things. People are going to jaywalk. Like people with disabilities that might be on one side of the road that might be worried about missing their bus and just not notice and not do it. Like, I really think a traffic exempt means to get from the mall side of the road to the bus side of the road feels really essential, if that's possible. Thank you.
Okay. One of the feedback, I guess, on that point is one of the things that we've done with the Terminal Avenue upgrades is trying to create barriers to prevent people crossing not at the lights. So we've got Commercial Street, the pedestrian crossing, and Esplanade, and in between them there's a median that's been put in and some fencing to kind of discourage, because we were seeing a lot of that. I know exactly what you're talking about. There was a lot of people just walking across Terminal Avenue regardless of traffic and that type of thing. So we've kind of seen that. I'll be very honest, a raised pedestrian crossing is a very expensive piece of infrastructure, and I don't think we have the space or the funding for it. Mr. Rose, do you have a comment on that?
And I'll just follow up that like my organization, Nanaimo Association for Community Living, is right next to where that transit exchange is going to be, and we do support people who do cross the street all the time. So I'm really concerned about their safety. We try and support people, but when they're out in the community, they're adults and they make choices, and we want to support them in making safe choices. So I do, it is a going concern about just the safety of access to that space, because there's not much people do on that side of the road. People do, though, spend quite a lot of time going over and then coming back. And if someone's running, maybe they're not paying attention. And Yeah, I don't want to say the worst case scenario, but we all know what it is.
I'm going to go to Richard now.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your.
Oh, we lost you at your. Sorry, Richard, we're not hearing anything come through from you right now. Richard, if you do have anything.
Lighting was.
Yeah, so we only got lighting there.
Sorry. I understand that lighting was something that is being addressed and kind of scored. What about overhangs to protect people from weather, so that like people in hoods aren't as intimidating and such?
Absolutely, that's a good question. All of the spaces that the buses will stop will have shelters with this new exchange, and that's going to be integrated into the project, absolutely.
Fantastic. And with regards to like reporting any sort of concerns and such, there hasn't been a formal way. I've noticed that there's a way to report accessibility concerns within the city, but there hasn't been with the RDN as of yet. And when my issues have been kind of put forward, it's seemed like it has fallen on deaf ears, as the saying goes. So I'm kind of wanting to reinforce a way to be able to report safety concerns and have them be followed up more efficiently, I think.
Okay, yeah, we don't have our RDN representative up right now, but I can certainly make a note of that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Marshall?
Thank you. Can you hear me, Richard?
Yeah.
I might defer the question to BC Transit. We will probably have to take this one away and talk to communications and ensure, although it's a tri-party project, BC Transit is taking the lead on the construction part of this project. So we'll have to make sure that both on the RDN and the city that there's a link to any communications that BC Transit puts out, that there's requesting any feedback or accepting feedback based on the project.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to weigh in on this? No, we've certainly had a lot of community concerns around safety at the transit exchange, and while yes, we do want coverage to protect people from weather that also can cause congregation in the area, being that it is right downtown, obviously the presence of our community safety officers will be helpful in addressing those kind of concerns, but it's going to be a balance, right, to figure out how to provide public access and sheltered space. And what about bathrooms? Are there plans for bathrooms on site?
Absolutely, that's a great question. That is one thing that is being integrated in this, and we're still trying to figure out exactly what that looks like, but there is a public washroom being proposed as part of the transit exchange. In regards to the other piece that you were talking about, I think the issues that BC Transit and the RDN are dealing with at the current transit exchange downtown, you know, the transit exchange doesn't necessarily bring the issues. The issues are already there, and so we do the best that we can to create lighting and creating safe spaces and that type of thing. And of course, we work with, like you said, the CSOs to, you know, be in the area as well. And I'm sure Mr. Marshall can talk about the protocols that he has with the bus stops that every morning they go around and kind of check them out and that type of thing to make sure that they're safe for people that are using them.
Yeah, and being that it is sort of like a hub space, would there be any sort of staffing on site at any time, just like to provide like wayfinding for people or to provide sort of like a security aspect or anything like that?
Go ahead, Darren.
Thank you. We have what are referred to as road support agents. In BC Transit, they're called TSs, Transit Supervisors. So these support the operators and the system and the public by trying to be present but there isn't, there's usually only one on at a time, but it does cover from the time we start in the morning till the last bus at the end of the night. And we are slowly increasing as the budget will allow more RSAs to cover off on peak times that receive the most calls. But they definitely do make a presence at specifically downtown and talk to a lot of people through the winter when in the extreme weather conditions when it's freezing or the extreme heat. They're out giving out water, ensuring that they're getting rides on buses to facilities that can take them for overnight to be safe from the elements. And so it is a program that we're developing, and we work very closely with the community safety officers and the RCMP as well throughout the RDN, and but a lot of the focus is in Nanaimo.
And will the area be monitored by CCTV?
That's undetermined at this time. The Perdeau did have CCTV, however, there's new privacy impact rules, and we'll have to evaluate. Each bus does have CCTV, so whenever a bus is there, it's providing that type of coverage. Even if the bus is shut off for 28 minutes, it keeps running. So we've been able to utilize that for a lot of reasons for the RCMP and for our own investigations.
Thank you. And is there still the plan that the buses wouldn't be parked overnight at that transit exchange itself, but around the corner on Cavan Street? Is there still a plan for a staging area there?
No, Cavan, thank you for the question. It's an excellent question, and it's come up before. We do not plan to stage any buses at the exchange or at the respite up on Cavan. The Cavan is just what it is, a respite for drivers to take their breaks. And we schedule breaks at certain locations. So downtown is one, Country Club is another, and then in the north is at Woodgrove or at our facility on Hammond Bay.
Okay, thank you for that information. Richard, do you have another question?
We do. About safety people.
About safety people is how much we got.
Are those the people that wear like safety jackets or like yellow jackets? I don't see them, but that's my blindness. So
I believe you're referring to the community safety officers and
yeah.
yeah, I don't believe no, they're not people out there with biz vests or like a construction worker or something like that. They're a team of people that work to, and to be honest, I don't know a lot about how to explain it really well.
Yeah, they're part of our
Councillor
bylaw team, but they have like sort of a blue outfit with a red a badge on the shoulder with a red outline, and then it says community safety officer on it, but they're not in high vis.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
for the transit supervisors,
Yes.
what do they? That's a BC Transit question. How do we
Thank
find
you.
those folks?
It's a good question. They do have, for different times of the year, they do wear a stab-proof vest. So it's either a dark blue or black. And they're all trained to security level. To order and wear one of those vests, you have to be certified. So all our RSAs are certified to that level.
Okay. One thing that I've definitely noticed is that the office itself generally only accepts calls between like 8:30 and like 5.
The RDN Transit office? Or the BC Transit?
So that like if a citizen did have questions about bus or concerns, that then they'd be able to actually communicate that to bus operators or staff effectively.
Yes, they definitely could communicate it to an operator, and the operator could pass it on to dispatch, which would then in turn pass it on to management, or an RSA road support agent as well could pass that along. We do monitor emails during the evening, mostly for any types of emergencies. But yeah, the office is open 8 to 4:30.
Yeah. So it just needs to have an like improved way to like access these concerns if someone does feel unsafe, I think, or if there are any concerns at any stops, like denial of service or um anything like that.
Like, it would make sense to have hours that align with when the buses are actually running, like from morning to night kind of thing.
Similar to what Vancouver has and like other
Okay. Yeah, we hear your point on that, and it is a good one.
can pick up, and you will get an operator immediately where they can see you on the CCTV and communicate with you if there's an emergency. Something like that would be really important at this location if there isn't there always going to be.
Yeah, I'm almost thinking, you cut out again, Richard, but I'm almost thinking like on university campuses when they've got like the help phone so that you don't even necessarily need to have a cell phone personally. I'll let BC Transit respond to that.
Hi, I'm Seth Wright from BC Transit. I'm the
pardon me.
senior manager of government relations, and I'm happy to. I wanted to sort of been sitting on my hands here to talk about safety, security on both on board and around our buses. As Darren Marshall mentioned, we have CCTV on all of our buses, almost all of our buses across the province. I think all the buses in Nanaimo certainly have CCTV, and we have a team of 6 investigators in Victoria that spend over half of their day every day reviewing CCTV footage to look into assault and to share that video with the local police detachment or whoever might be investigating that, or the operating company, the RDN in this case. So we do have a very proactive and very strongly resourced safety and security team that does that work on a day-to-day basis, and we're more than happy to facilitate those pieces. I would say to the point that's being asked about after hours service, the RDN does manage the complaints and facilitate responses to those complaints to service within RDN. In Victoria, where BC Transit operates service, we have a TCOM system, a transit communication system, so that provides that after hours service, and that's because we have not just one person driving around, but a whole fleet of people that are able to respond, and dispatch is able to facilitate that. But that's ultimately a scale of the transit system, and Nanaimo is unfortunately not quite at that level without that provides that cost value benefit. But certainly we're happy to look at opportunities and look at accessibility of service in emergencies. And I guess ultimately it falls upon 911 if there's really an emergency after hours that needs support.
Thank you. For that pedestrian connection in between Victoria Crescent and the Transit Exchange, is that the China Steps, and is there a plan for accessible access through there?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So yes, there is a plan for an accessible at-grade crossing between Victoria Crescent and Terminal Avenue in that China Steps area. The project plan right now has an at-grade crossing and rebuilding the steps because the steps kind of take up most of the space in the area. So still in the early stages of what exactly that looks like, but it's always been the plan to have a crossing there. In all honesty, the hope was that the property there would be redeveloping at the same time, and it could be like a sidewalk off the back of the building that would just naturally fit into the space. But it looks like that's on a longer time scale at the moment. So we'll have to make sure that there's something in there in the short term.
Just make it one big ramp. Okay. Nicole.
So on those artist renderings, I'm pretty sure I saw shade and shelter. And did I see seats there as well? Because I know that sometimes seats have been removed at bus stops in order to discourage people from staying in the shelters, and I would hope that the seats would be built into this plan. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The shelters will have benches on them and be a similar level of service that we have at our current downtown exchange with shelters and benches and waiting areas.
Okay, thank you so much to the committee for all of the feedback. Going once, going twice on this, and we'll make sure that we keep the lines of communication open between the city as we develop this project and the RDN. So yeah, thank you, everyone. Okay, so then we don't have any reports, so we're into other business, and committee member Sean Enns is going to give us the lowdown on National Disability Employment Awareness Month.
So interestingly, in British Columbia, Employment Awareness Month is September, which is fine, so we have our own, but nationally and beyond, it's in October. There's that organization that facilitates the disability employment awareness, has a lot of teeth behind it. You do see a lot of stuff being done in Ontario around it. One thing they do is during that month, they do this thing called Light It Up for NDEAM, which is Light It Up for National Disability Employment Awareness Month. On the third Thursday of the month, municipalities are encouraged to light up their city halls, their landmarks in blue and purple to celebrate disability employment. So, as something to suggest to the city of Nanaimo, I think that could be a great way to advocate for the value of employing people with disabilities.
So we're thinking the Bastion specifically, probably because that's the main thing that we light up.
I think that's a terrific idea, Councillor Eastmuir, and I look forward to working with you on that.
I can't wait to send you the link to fill it out to request that we light up the Bastion. But yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I think the Bastion is great. I think if there's anything we can do with City Hall as well, those things are great. And even if it's just a few lights, I think doing that and noting the values around employing people with disabilities in the community is hugely important. And I think it sends a strong message to community businesses. It sends a strong message elsewhere around that this is something that the city values and appreciates, and then that brings other people in the city in line.
100%. Okay, thank you. Richard?
I fully support this initiative. I know that the city has recently purchased the Disability Pride flag, and it would be great to incorporate that. I know as the CNIB has done a study on the amount of people that are unemployed or underemployed that are blind, and it's 80% of blind people, and it only goes to 70% if you have a university education. So I think the more awareness that we can spread around hiring more diverse employees is definitely going to help with inclusion throughout our city.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Thank you for the prompt on that disability pride flag as well. And thank you, Sean, for bringing this up so that we have lots of notice before it happens in October. So no excuses. Thank you. And then we have Tammy, Hirasawa, you want to share about a very exciting event happening up at Westwood Lake on July 29th.
So everybody needs to put July 29th. It's a Tuesday on their calendars. The event starts at 10 a.m. with, I'm sure, City Council and Mayor Krogh will be opening the, basically the accessible beach and washrooms at Westwood Lake. We're really hoping that the washrooms are done by then. So, so the event runs from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. at Westwood Lake First Beach. And I believe there's going to be like a concert or something at 4 o'clock afterwards. But 11 a.m. will be tours of the new facility and amenities by City of Nanaimo. And 11:30 we're starting. We have double kayaks and we have trail riders through the trails. And there'll be lots of other fun things to do at Outdoor Play Day.
Thank you for that, and we're going to make sure that all the committee members get a email invitation so that you're looped in. So thank you so much for that, and really looking forward to it. Excellent. Well, that brings us to the end of today's agenda. So barring any final comments, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Okay. Moved by Sean, seconded by Nicole. All in favor? Okay, thank you everyone for your